Hello again. This week on Think Inclusion, we meet Geri Jones, who speaks about her journey through adversity and, most importantly, success. Geri shares her experiences with us about various disabilities she has, including a degenerative disease and type 2 diabetes, as well as some mental health challenges. But despite all of that, she has prospered in work and life, and I'm delighted to welcome her today to share her story with you all. I've been lucky enough to know Geri for a number of years, and she inspires me all the time. I have no doubt her story will serve as an inspiration for others facing similar struggles, encouraging them to embrace the journeys and pursue their goals. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to Think Inclusion podcast with Garry Clarke-Strange, your host. And I am here today and joined by a wonderful person who I have the pleasure of knowing called Geri Jones, who is going to introduce herself and talk to you a little bit about her story of adversity, but also success in life. And I'm really excited for you to hear this story today. Think Inclusion podcast is a storytelling podcast where I am joined by a number of guests who come to talk about their experiences. Let's get started and let's meet today's guest. Would you like to start by introducing yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about you?
So I'm Geri, obviously, and I am a learning and development partner for a big company in hospitality. I am a mum of two and have a wonderful husband, and happy-go-lucky person I am.
You definitely are. I had the pleasure of working with Geri in my career. And it was one of those moments where we just met each other and connected like straight away as soon as we started working together. And I feel like we've shared a lot over the years. You were someone who I really wanted to get on the podcast to, I guess in some ways to help you to tell your story, because I know you quite well and I know your story will inspire people. And I think actually that is the main thing, to help others hear that even though we are all faced with challenges, that we can face into those challenges and come out the other side and still show success.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we get started, Geri, and we will talk most of the way through this podcast about you. That's the goal of today. What does inclusion mean to you? When we think about this concept of inclusion, in your own words, what does that mean to you?
I think inclusion can be interpreted sometimes the wrong way. I think by being inclusive, everybody thinks they've got to change everything they do, their way that they act, the way that they do things to make people feel like they're part of something. And often or not, certainly from my aspect, it's just about being included in the sense of, you're treated the same way, nothing's done anything different, because you just want to be part of that team, that set of people, because you just want to live a normal life like they do. So by making things different, actually you end up having things, making it worse almost, because you just don't want that additional focus on you, that kind of reaction to it all. So I think, certainly for me, and it's different for everybody, but inclusion to me is just being treated exactly the same as that person sitting next to you, or given those same things that they would have.
And it's not even just in work, right? It's just in life. We want that. It's a basic right. And it's that, I guess, feeling of just like, you can be you can belong.
Yeah, exactly. When people do something different, that kind of makes everything that's happening with you completely different and worse, because although you want to be included and you have those changes made because those people want to make it easier for you, actually it's just because you just want to be the same, you just want to fit in. It means different for everybody, but for me that's what it means.
It does. And the focus of today's podcast is about people who have disabilities. In this case, we're going to talk about that in a second for you, but it's, how you can focus on still achieving success once you are determined, despite the fact that you might have challenges with a disability. So I guess to get started then, to start to tell your story, can you tell us a bit about your first diagnosis and that you had that began to class you as disabled, and what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so I've got a bit of a history. When I first found out that I had this degenerative disease, so it's a disease that makes your discs all crumble and collapse. So I've shrunk about 3 inches in the last 7-8 years. But basically, yeah, very painful, very hard to get along with. In the mornings, you kind of look like an old age pensioner, and it takes you a good half an hour to get going. And excuse my terminology on old age pensioner, but that's the only way I can describe, bent over and trying to get going sort of thing. For my kids, it's really hard when they found out that I had it, because I struggled to put my socks on, so they were having to put my socks on for me. And some days you can be great and you can be walking around and doing everything everyone else is doing, but on other days you're really slow. You can't focus because you're in so much pain. Your head just doesn't get in the right space, and you end up switching off. So it's quite, almost like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of experience.
When were you first diagnosed?
So I had a horse accident, actually. Used to be a keen horse rider. Was doing my exam to be an instructor, and the horse had one idea and I had another idea. And the horse unfortunately won. So my neck landed on one pole and my back landed on another, and I kind of went like that. And adrenaline, when you're doing something like that, you just kind of get back up and get back on the horse, which is exactly what I did. And after that, I had another 2 hours to go of this exam, so it took a while for it to kick in. But then the next day, I really felt it, because I actually couldn't walk. Ended up going to hospital because I didn't feel very well at all. I was doing the gardening and my husband came out, and yeah, I just couldn't do stuff. So ended up going to the hospital, and after a long set of tests, found out that I had degenerative disease, but I also had modic type 1, which is where the liquid in your columns kind of disappears and goes, and so things start to collapse on top of each other and rub. And yeah, it's really, really, really painful. So yeah, not pleasant by any shape and imagination.
And already there, your determination, so to still continue on with that horse exam for 2 hours after falling off.
Yeah, I wanted to pass the exam.
Priorities, right?
Yeah, priorities. Yeah.
And what changed when you got that diagnosis? What was the impact on you? Obviously, you talked about some of the basics with your children, putting on your socks, etc. But what was the mindset change of knowing that you had this now to deal with?
For me at the time, it was really hard because I was actually self-employed as a childminder. So my whole business revolved around this. Picking children up was really difficult. So my business actually shut down. I closed my business. So it had a massive detrimental effect to my family, to my husband as well, because obviously he was working with me at the time. He then obviously had to go and go back out and find a different job to do. I actually went into becoming a teaching assistant because that was a route then that I knew I could take and do it part-time. So that was quite different. But yeah, detrimental effect. Couldn't run my own business anymore.
And again, I think it's hard for us to put into, as someone who is able-bodied, to think about something happening that changes not only your physical, but then actually your environmental around you, because you've got to change your approach to work. I think you were about to talk to us there a few minutes ago about some other diagnoses that were there. So tell us more came along the line.
It just got progressively worse after that. So I found out that I had those, and then hypothyroidism. So that came into the mix of it. So where your metabolism is really slow, so it doesn't quite do what it needs to. So you end up putting weight on. It's very hard to lose weight, and yeah, you find it very difficult. But in the two together, with all the pain that was with my back and my neck, and other parts of my body that I'd actually found out that I had issues with, this had obviously come on top of that, which apparently, you get all those bits and pieces on top of that. You get body aches, you get anxiety, depression, everything goes with it, which is really, really difficult. And if that wasn't enough, then most recently finding out that I've got type 2 diabetes. So yeah, just some real big things in there to really warrant kind of lifestyle changes and what daily life looks like.
And so, especially with the diabetes, what's the change been to you in your daily life?
Well, for me, that's so. It's not because you're fat. I just want to put that out there for all those people out there that may
Let's
think it's
dispel
not.
that myth, Geri, yeah?
What's that? Sorry.
Let's dispel the myth.
Yes, dispel the myth. It is, it's inherited from families, genetics. So don't think anything else. But yeah, lifestyle changes, eating just slightly different food. Rather than going down that cake aisle, it's vegetable aisle. Doesn't mean you can't have cakes. It just does mean you can't have as many. And yeah, just changing your kind of exercise routine, which for me is really hard. Because even though I've joined a gym where I do little bits every day now, for other people that might be 3 times a week, I have to go every day just to do little small bits at a time, because that's how my body will cope with it.
I understand. So I guess we're hearing here a lot of different challenges have been thrown your way over the years. And then I guess we're hearing already stacked on top of that with some more probably for want of a better term, like mental health challenges that came with the wider range of diagnosis that you had. Can you talk to us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so literally, I think from the age of 10, I think I've had a really tough kind of upbringing and tough life. So lots of things to really cause kind of trauma in my whole life. My dad passed away when I was 10. He had a massive heart attack, just dropped down dead kind of in front of me. So that was really hard because my mum's disabled. So I was the first to kind of get there and see what's happening. To then just moving on to having spinal meningitis at 17, to then having all these little bits that happened in between that. But the kind of, when you go to the doctors and you go, I'm really struggling to deal with all this stuff. And then they go, yeah, you've got general anxiety disorder and you're depressed. And here you go, let's sign you off for 2 weeks. Me being me, don't take the 2 weeks. You can't stop. It just can't happen. You've got to keep going. You can't switch off because actually it's harder. And I'm an overthinker, so I constantly worry about what everybody else is thinking, just like I'm going to be now with all the people that are going to be watching this. What their thoughts are, what their opinions are, and you second guess yourself all the time. You're constantly asking yourself, is that the right thing to do? Have I done something wrong? And I've got this real thing of, if everybody else is happy, I'm okay. I can deal with that as long as everyone else is okay. And I'll always put everybody else first before I put myself, including my family. It's all about them.
And from the outside in, it looks as if you're, in full control of it, right?
Oh my gosh, if you knew what my head was doing right now, you wouldn't even ask the questions. If I could open my little head up and, visualize that, it's just spinning constantly. It doesn't stop. My husband swapped with me one day for my birthday. He said, you're going to be me and I'm going to be you. And I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's do it. My kids went absolutely crazy. They were just in giggles all day long. And at the end of the day, my husband said, I'm actually exhausted. I don't know how you are you. So, yeah, it's exhausting. It is exhausting.
Overthinking is really challenging and tiring because it's nonstop. So I also have general anxiety disorder, and I understand it's that constant questioning, challenging your own frame of thinking or what others are thinking of you, or sweating the small things all the time. That can lead you to a point of just exhaustion at the end of it. No one else will know, right? The first day I met you, I met this positive, extremely confident, which I know you are, person, but I never would have guessed behind that was what you're telling us now.
Yeah, and in addition to that, kind of, go out there and carry on. I went to university to do a master's degree at the age of 40. So, to all those people out there who haven't done one yet, you can still do one. Age is just a number. My professor, my lecturer, he said to me, you seem to just put stuff down on paper completely different to what you actually talk to me. He said, when you talk to me, the story is completely different. And he said, I just want you to get tested. I just want you to go and have a test. So on top of all those other things that I've mentioned to you, I got diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. So do you know what? That makes sense to me now. All those years ago when I couldn't comprehend things, and when my dad passed away and they put it down to grief, yeah, it probably was grief. But actually, the reason I couldn't do the stuff I could do was because of those two things that I've now found, and I've been living with for 3-4 years now. And I'm still learning about them, but things make sense now. Things, I see things and I think, I watch a video on TikTok. My kids have introduced me to TikTok. What's that all about? But you watch these people and they post pictures of them getting in their car after you've had a really busy day with people, and they sit there and they go, "Oh, thank God." That's exactly how I feel. Yeah. It's exhausting. You get in your car and you when I get off this call, it'll be exactly the same. You will, I had a meeting on Tuesday. You go through everything. You have an excellent day. You love every bit of what you do. And then you get in your car or you come off a call and you go, did I do that right? Have I done this? What about that? What are they thinking? Oh my goodness, what I made an absolute fool of myself. What are they going to say about me when I next see them? And it's just constant. It's absolutely constant. I've got better. I'm a few years on now, and going to the gym is really helping because it's space and time for me. But yeah.
Do you find watching content like that on TikTok? I follow a few accounts which are, proud ADHDers, and obviously it's individual to them, but there's an understanding then by watching that content on the likes of TikTok for me, of just what that must be like to be ADHD. But I guess for you, is that helpful to see other people having the same challenges as you, or experiencing things in the same way?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's difficult because I think it's really important that you don't try and match yourself to somebody else. It's your journey. What they've got and what they see and what they do is completely different to you, and you should never ever compare yourself to somebody else. And I think some parts of my life I have wanted to mirror myself to them because I want to be like them, or I want to fit in. And I think that's one thing in the whole of my journey. I have just wanted to fit in, and I don't know why I've got that kind of nervousness, that worry that I don't fit in. But that could be part of overthinking, could be part of any one of the reasons that I've got wrong with me. But don't compare your journey to somebody else's. They can post all they like on TikTok or social media about their journey, but don't ever think that yours is the same. You could have similarities by all means. And it is, when you do see stuff, you think, oh yeah, that's the same as me, and that's the same as me. But yeah, your journey is your own journey.
I love that. And what you just mentioned there as well about dyslexia, and again, credit back to you, knowing the job that you do. So you work in the learning and development space, and I would expect some people wouldn't expect somebody who is dyslexic to be able to work in a HR function and to be able to work in that environment. So how does that impact that?
Well, that's a really good question. My aspiration when I was younger was to be a primary school teacher, and really struggled with maths, just couldn't get my head around it, in the sense that I actually caused myself nosebleeds in my maths lessons because I didn't want to be in them. I hated maths, still hate maths.
I've never heard of that as a symptom.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
But English, absolutely, I can't write very quickly, and yet my lecturer was completely right. I will say something and write something completely different. It's like two different people writing stuff. It's quite odd. But I have lots of tools to be able to help me to do that now, which is great. But yeah, it's really hard. In the job that I do, when people ask me to do stuff, it sounds really simple to them. But in the role that I do, it's time bound. Which is really hard for me because actually I want to rush to get stuff done, because I worry if I don't get it on time, I worry what those people will think. Yeah. But in the same instance, you need to take the time to get it right. And I'm not the most patient of people by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, I really struggle with that kind of thinking out loud, putting it down on paper and it matching. My brain does one thing and everything else does something else.
So you've got all that going on. You've got, the various challenges that you've talked about. I don't know if there's a better word, Geri. Maybe there is, but I'm just going to use challenges.
I like to see them as gifts now.
There you go. Thank you for educating me on that. Yes, gifts. You've got various gifts that are there. you've got your job going on, and then you mentioned at the start of the podcast, you're a mum, you have a family, you have a husband. How are you keeping all these with the gifts that you have been given, and the challenges that we heard? Some that come with them gifts or challenges of not being able to walk as fast at the start of the day, etc. How are you keeping everything spinning?
I only really notice it when I stop and have like a holiday or something like that, because I'm doing something different, and then I don't have that kind of constantness of making me stay busy on things. So that makes me not think about it as much. But as soon as I kind of drop that ball and go, you can sit down and rest and do stuff, I can't do it. I get an itch to have to do stuff, in the sense of like going on holiday. I'll be making the bed still, I'll be making sure that everything's tidy in that room. I won't just leave the socks and the swim shorts on the floor. It's got to be tidy, it's got to be exactly how it is at home. And I'm thinking constantly, oh, what shall I do for work when I get back? Oh, what do I need to do this? And I'll just write that down, to the extent now that I've got a pad next to my bed, where I'll wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, I wonder if that would be that, because by the morning I won't have remembered it, because by the morning I hurt so much I've forgotten about everything that I was doing. And until my brain starts functioning again, that's when I go again and think, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing now. But there are days where I just get overwhelmed and I can't do anything and I'm just useless. And I've just learned to go, do you know what? I'm just going to switch the computer off and I just need to take a couple of hours for myself here. And it is soul destroying, because you just think, God, I just want 1 minute where I can just think clearly and do something to the same ability as everybody else without that additional bit to think about.
Yeah, and I'm guessing there are probably different aspects of ADHD coming into some of them feelings of, of how to switch off, but then your physical disabilities on top of that as well when you marry all them together.
Yeah.
But knowing you, so you talked there about you wish you were able to do things that everybody could do without, you phrased it better, but despite that, I know you, and I know that you have set yourself some challenges, because I follow you on social media, and I remember being just wowed by what you were doing. So talk to us about some of the challenges that you've set yourself, not challenges as in the gifts you were talking about, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, I've always done something for a charity. I've done some bits for Macmillan most recently, and decided that my body will not get the better of me. I will crack on and do something, and decided to do the Cardiff Half Marathon, which, never thought I would be able to do that. So set my goal kind of this January, just, going, you will do that. And I did that in October, in 2.5 hours. Set myself 2.5 hours to be able to do it in. I wanted to get under 2.5 hours, but I think I got to about mile 8, and my eldest daughter was there with me. And I just burst in tears. My body had enough. My hips didn't want to go forward. My legs didn't want to move. And it was just pure will and determination to keep going for those last few miles, till I got to the end, where I couldn't even put one foot in front of the other at the end, and she drove me home. But do you know what? I did it. And that was just a small amount of time that I experienced that pain. And for me, that was much shorter than all the people that I did it for. So, for me, that's really good. And I did it for a purpose. But I think my most recent thing is I got bullied by my family, not nastily, but they all have bikes, motorbikes, not bicycles, motorbikes.
Okay.
And so my husband started riding a bike, and it was really good. And then my eldest daughter wanted to do her CBT, so she started riding a bike, and then got old enough to buy a car, so drives a car. And then my youngest daughter did exactly the same, and she's done her test as well for a CPT, and she's riding a bike. And they go, come on, Mum, you're the only one left now. How do you feel about this? And I was terrified about bikes, because I fell off one when I was little and vowed I'd never get on one ever again. Anyway, they kept taking me to all these bike shops and going, oh, what do you think about this one? Sit on that one. Anyway, I plucked up the courage to book a half an hour lesson with the local motorcycle club, and got on it. And I was on a little moped, doesn't go very fast at all. Anyway, I was going about 5 miles an hour, but thought I was going 30. As you do, in a paddock that, nothing's around you. then the next time I went, and I did book the next time because I was like, okay, I quite like this. I'm all right with this. The next time I went, the man that was teaching me was actually an ex-police officer, and he said, let's go and see what bike we're on today. And he got a 125 out. And and I was like, oh, I'm on a moped. You've got the wrong bike out. And he went, no, we're going to go on this bike today. I was like, I can't get on that bike. I can't get on that bike. Anyway, about 25 minutes in, I was going up and down this paddock going, oh, this is really good. This is really good. Yeah. And then the next time I saw him, I did another lesson, started going out, and well, long story short, I'm on the CBT, and I've done my CBT. I actually have my own bike now. It's called Bert, named after it's my dad's middle name. And Bert and me go out on the bike with my husband and sometimes my youngest daughter. And the furthest I've been at the moment is Wales. I've done like 700 miles on this bike. I've been asked to do talks about it to other lady bikers and people who've got disabilities. And you know what? Just go and do it. Life's too short.
How do you feel when you're on the bike?
I love it. I've got my tunes in my head and I'm just going.
I have this mental vision in my head of you, but the word that's coming into my head as you're saying that is freedom. And I don't know where that's coming from, but that's what I can kind of visualize, this feeling for you on there of just complete another freedom.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I only do like, max 50, 60 mile an hour. And that for me at the minute is fast enough. I'm not interested, going to get a super bike or anything in any near time future. But it's just time for my head to do something completely different. It's like time for me to just concentrate on what I want to do, where I want to go. And yeah, as I said, I've been to Wales. So yeah, absolutely love it. So I'm actually grateful for my family bullying me into doing it.
I was going to say, did your family actually talk to the instructor on lesson 2 and say, make her get on a bigger bike? Were they behind that as well?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's my youngest daughter that was following me on that one. So,
but I guess what that's showing as well is that you have given them the insight that nothing should stand in your way, despite the gifts that you've been given. Yeah. That, I think some people might not suggest that to you because, you can just hear the conversation, mum wouldn't be able for that. But actually your kids don't see that as a barrier for you. They're going, no, mum, we're on the bike. Just because you have gifts, why should you be not able to do this? And I love that sense of thinking.
Yeah, and it is great. And don't get me wrong, there's always a but at the end of it. I suffer when I get off of it, sitting on it, no matter how comfortable the seat is, you still struggle. If I get cold, like I've not ridden it for a month or so because I'm just too cold. I can't do it. Even with all the warm gear and bits and pieces you can put on, I just struggle. But, and once that pain sets in, your concentration goes, and that's not a good thing to do. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's brilliant.
One of the great things about me being able to host this podcast is that I am helping other people hear stories. And I know what people will have heard from you in abundance today is, if we think about the journey just of this last half an hour alone, of you talking about the different things that you've experienced in your life. Some of them have been personal experiences from, grief in a young age through to the different disabilities and diagnoses that came over the years. But then the outcome is still you being a person who is overcoming those challenges that you're set and overachieving, because, you'll be achieving more than a lot of people will. I guess to start to finish off the conversation between us today, what would you like people to take away if they're thinking back in future to, I will listen to Geri's story, what should their takeaway be?
I think certainly in the last year, even if you just do a teaspoon a day of something new or of a forward motion, it doesn't matter. It could be a tablespoon. It doesn't matter the size of takeaway. It's your space, your time, your journey. Don't compare yourself to anybody, but do say to yourself, you can do it. You've just got to do it in your time, at your pace. And even if you just set yourself a goal once a month or, every couple of months, just go and try it. Don't think and don't give in to those other things that tell you you can't, because that's just your brain telling you something that you mustn't listen to. Obviously, there is an element of risk there, but and you mustn't follow that risk as well. But in the same instance, you know what? Just I've lived my whole life in fear of doing stuff, and I'm getting to that point now where actually we don't have that kind of privilege in life to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've got all these wondrous gifts that have been given to me, but in the same instance, yes, they will play on my mind every single day, and they will make sure they know that they are, making me aware they're still there. But I have to keep telling myself, and I'll keep doing what I need to do to get where I need to get to. And if that's small steps or big steps, just keep going.
I absolutely love that. I daren't ask, because you said start of 24, you set yourself the challenge of the half marathon. We're recording this as we're coming towards the end of the year. You started thinking about 25's challenge yet?
Yeah, definitely.
Of course you have. You want to share?
I'm looking to do my actual bike test to be able to go from my little 125 to a bigger bike. Which is probably going to be the biggest thing for me next year, because just the sheer weight of a bike, I will struggle with that. But hopefully with going to the gym, I might be able to handle that heavier bike, because you do your test on a bigger bike. But mentally for me, that's going to be massively challenging. And I think moving into a new kind of brand within my job that I do, that's a bit of a challenge for me, because I want to make those great choices and make sure that I'm having those great conversations. And then I think, why not? Let's do another half marathon.
Why not?
I figured just do the same one next year as I did this year, Cardiff half, and see if we can beat the time. No,
I adore that. I mean, I still have the vision of you at mile 8. I've done a half marathon before, and you've still got quite a way to go. And then I mean, let's end on that note. The fact that you can even then face to go back and think, I'm going to do that again, I'm going to beat it, despite, I think you underplayed it there, which you do a lot, which is, you said, it's only a short time between mile 8 and the end. No, it's not. Like, it's still quite a bit. You're a legend, you know that. I've told you so many times, I think pretty much every time I meet you, or virtually or in person, I tell you you're a legend. Thank you so much for coming on to Think Inclusion podcast and telling your story. You will have inspired many people.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks, Geri.
And that was Geri's story. I'm sure you'll agree she's an inspiration to many, and her determination to succeed is something we can all learn from. It was a real genuine pleasure to have this conversation with Geri, and I hope you took away from it as much as I did. This podcast is all about giving people the safe space to share their story in order to inspire others and help them understand more the challenges some minorities or marginalised people face. If you would like to share your story on a future episode, get in touch with me. I'm Garry Clarke-Strange on LinkedIn, or email me at Gary@thinkinclusionconsulting.com. And don't forget, if your business is looking for support in making inclusion a reality, then head to my website, www.thinkinclusionconsulting.com, and check out how I can help you.